Hi guys, my name is Julie. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over all of the books that I want to read this fall. So a fall TBR, this is my fall TBR. This isn't a recommendation video because these are books that I want to read, so I haven't read them yet and I can't really recommend books that I haven't read. I do have a couple books to go through. Most of them I have on my physical TBR, but like a couple of them I don't, so I'll just put the picture on the screen. I'm just so excited for like this season because I feel like, well, I live in Florida, so we don't really get a fall. It's kind of just like either rain or like humid out, but I feel like when it is rainy, like that's my favorite time to read because it's just like so like atmospheric and just the sound, like the rain hitting the roof. I'm just like, ugh, it's so good. Let's just get straight into it. So the first book on my fall TBR is my current read, and that is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. This is not out yet. This is an arc that I'm reading for a Reading Arcs for a Week video. It comes out October 29th, 2024, and it is so good so far. Like it's actually giving me 5-star feelings, and I'm about 30% in. I don't even know how to describe this. It's basically follows like two main characters. One of them is like not from the city, and then the other one is, her name Skiona. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. I should have looked it up. But she is very smart. She's very dedicated, and she wants to be a high mage. So the book starts out with her taking this exam, and only one woman every 10 years can take the exam because like the whole system is very just sexist. And so we start the book off with her taking the exam, and she has to do all these like spells and everything and show them that she can be a high mage, because in this world like everything is run by the high mages, by the archmages, like the trains, the bridges, like everything, the architecture, everything is built upon these spells from the mages. And I honestly don't even think I'm doing this justice. Like, I'm just gonna put it on the screen. It's really good so far. It's very atmospheric. The writing is impeccable. Like, I feel like the last couple books I've read, I just haven't been connecting to the characters, but I felt like I connected to these characters from the first like chapter that they were in. Like, it was just, the writing is so good. The way that the information is delivered is just like, it's really good. I do want to read Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong because I've just heard like if you like the Poppy War, you'll like that. So that I think will be on my winter TBR, but this I would add to your fall TBR because I'm only 30% in and I'm obsessed with it. It's so entertaining, and I'm loving it. So the next book I don't own yet. It actually released today, and that is Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. I don't know what this is about, honestly. I read the description whenever I saw it on my Libby for like that it was coming out soon. I'll put it on the screen. M.L. Rio is like the author of If We Were Villains, which we'll get to later, but I actually did see this like last Thursday, so it came out today, which is Tuesday, and I saw it on Thursday when I was at Books A Million, and they had put it out early, and it was $16 for like the tiniest little book, and I was like, yeah, I'm not physically capable of like bringing that to the front desk and buying it, but it just sounds really good, so I'm just gonna wait until my library gets it, and then we'll see. Oh my gosh, my hair looks so yellow. Guys, I'm trying to get it fixed. Well, small intermission. We're trying to get my hair to like this blonde, like a Targaryen blonde, kind of like a Narcissa blonde, I guess. But yeah, we have to fix it. So just ignore my hair. It's like a billion different shades, but we'll get there eventually. Anyways, we've come to the haul portion of the video. I have accumulated some books over like the span of a month and a half since filming my physical TBR video, which will be linked down below if you want to go watch it. But basically, these books I didn't have when I filmed that video, so it's just everything I've accumulated after, and all of them I want to read immediately. Like, they are on my fall TBR. They will be getting read this season. So the first book is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is like a fantasy with dragons, and it just sounds really good. I mean, I've seen it all over TikTok. I do have the audiobook on Libby right now, so I probably will be reading this next so I can like actually listen to the audiobook as well. It's a little bit chunky, but I feel like since reading the Throne of Glass series, I'm like, I genuinely can read anything. Like, I feel like I'm not as intimidated by large books anymore. This, I don't know too much about it. I know that it follows this girl named Rave. She's an assassin for a rebel group, and a rival bounty hunter kind of like betrays her, and he gets her imprisoned in the prison, and she gets imprisoned by the Guild of Nobles, a group of powerful fae who turn her into a political statement. And then Khan Vagor, he's basically like this usurper. He like killed the king and took his crown, and he stumbles upon her, and then it goes from there. It's like, I guess like a romantasy. I'm not really sure, but I've heard so many good things about it. It just sounds so good. There's literally like a whole glossary at the beginning, which is like genuinely terrifying. Like, what do you mean? Like, I feel like I've read a couple books with glossaries, but like this glossary is very long and I'm nervous, but I do think this is gonna be really good, so I'm excited to get into it. Then we have A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R. R. Martin. This is kind of like 3 prequel novellas predating the Song of Ice and Fire books, also known as A Game of Thrones. It takes place a century before A Game of Thrones. It is pretty vague on the back. It says that it follows this hedge knight. His name is Sir Duncan, also known as Dunk. He has the squire whose name is Egg, and we don't know his real name. And then it basically just says that great destinies lay ahead for these two, as do powerful foes, royal intrigue, and outrageous exploits. Has illustrations on the inside. Very beautiful. I'm excited to jump back into this world. I have read Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin, and that was a little difficult to get into because it's written more like a history book, like a historical account. So I am excited to get into something that's less like historically written, if that makes sense, because I feel like this is written more like a story. And I say this in genuinely every video. I want to read the Song of Ice and Fire book so bad, but I feel like I should read this before that since it is prequel novellas. I don't know how much this is gonna like matter, but it is being adapted into a show on HBO Max next year, so I obviously want to read it before I watch the show because that's what I did with Fire and Blood. But it just sounds like a really good time. It's pretty short. I think it's like, yeah, 330-ish pages. The next book that I bought is Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan. This has been making its rounds on, I feel, BookTube and TikTok a little bit because this was a Fairy Loot adult book recently. It follows this girl named Ray, and she's like dying. I'm not sure if she has like a chronic disease or something. I feel like I heard that, but I don't know because it doesn't say that on the back. It just says that she's dying and that she has a second chance at living through being transported to the world of her favorite fictional fantasy series. And obviously she takes it because like who wouldn't? But actually me, because I would, yeah. But basically it says that she gets there and she realizes that she's the villainess. She is the villain in this story, and it kind of just goes from there. It says that she like actually plays into it, so it just sounds really interesting. I know that this is the first book in a series, but what can you do? I'm gonna read it anyways. It just sounds like a really entertaining time, so yeah. Then we have A Dark and Drowning Tide. This is a new release by Alison Saft. It's like a sapphic academic rivals to lovers, kind of like whodunit mystery novel to my knowledge. I don't know, like look at this cover though. It is so stunning. It is like matte, and I love a good matte cover. This also is so floppy. Like I'm so excited to read this book because like literally just look how it sits. Like that is scrumdiddlyumptious. It follows Lorelai. She is like a folklorist, and she is going on this expedition with her mentor and other people that her mentor mentors, and they are going to find this like hidden spring that's supposed to be super magical for the king. And it turns out while they're on this expedition that her mentor gets murdered, and basically she has to reluctantly ally with, I don't know who is who, but these are like the academic rivals. They have to ally with each other in order to solve the mystery of who killed their mentor. I'm probably not doing it justice. It just sounds so good. This is such like an atmospheric looking book. I feel like it'd be perfect for fall, and I really want to get into it soon. The last book that I have to haul in this video is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I am obsessed with this cover. It reminds me of like Dickinson, but it's just gorgeous. These deckled edges as well, which I like deckled edges as an aesthetic, like whenever they're like this, but I just personally don't like reading them because then it's like I usually like turn pages from like here, and I guess I have to do it from like the bottom. It's not that big of a deal. It's really pretty. I feel like the aesthetic of this book is just gorge. This follows Dracula's first wife, Constanta. It's kind of written through letters, I'm pretty sure, and it's a letter to her lover, I'm guessing. I'm not really sure that much about this book, but I've heard nothing but good things. People are obsessed with this book. They're like, this is my favorite book, and it just sounds really good. It's like sapphic as well, and I'm just super excited to get into that. I'm planning to read this in a reading vlog with Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is like one of the OG books. This is a classic, and I actually started this like in the springtime because I was reading it for a Gothic Lit class, and then we just stopped reading it in class. We only read 4 chapters, so that's as far as I got into it, but I do want to read it because I feel like this is perfect for like the fall time, especially October, and I just feel like I really want to get into this classic because there are some classics that are like more high on my list. It was like Dracula and Phantom of the Opera, which I really enjoyed. I tabbed that for a class. But yeah, I really want to read Dracula. This will be in a reading vlog, reading vampire books, along with a book I don't have yet, but that is Carmilla. I really want to read this because this is like the OG vampire book. Like, this is the book that inspired Dracula. It's a sapphic telling of like vampires, and I want to read the Clockworks edition specifically because I know that this has like a lot of like homophobia and sexism in it because of the time that it was written and the views of the author. But I've heard good things about the edited version, that it has like an introduction that kind of like explains things better. It has like illustrations, and I'm not sure if it has like annotations, but I've heard really good things about like that specific edition. I don't own it, but I will whenever I read it. I just don't think there's a point in buying it right this second. Alright, so the next book that I have on my fall TBR is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is a romance. I'm pretty sure it has like magical realism though, because of like the synopsis of the book. It says that it follows this girl named Clementine. She is like a book publisher, and she's struggling with the recent passing of her aunt. And her aunt left her this apartment. I guess she moves into the apartment, and when she gets there, there's this man. Scary, very spooky. Except that he is living 7 years in the past, and she's 7 years in his future. It just sounds really interesting. I feel like I've never read anything like that with like a time gap, I guess. I'm not really sure how that's gonna go, but it says that like he's the type of man who before it all she would have fallen head over heels for, and she might still. So that just sounds really interesting. I've heard nothing but glowing reviews about this. Like, this is like a 4 to 5 star for like everybody that I've watched review it, and it just sounds really good, so I really want to get into it. Then the next book I have is Uprooted. This is by Naomi Novik. It follows this girl named Agnieszka. Hopefully I'm saying that right, but she lives in this quiet village, and in this village they kind of rely on this wizard. His name is the Dragon, and every 10 years, like, in order for him to keep supporting them, or I'm not really sure how the magic in this works, but basically he requires the village give him a young woman every 10 years in order to like serve him, I guess, which is but this just looks so atmospheric. I've heard such great things about this book, and I really want to get into it. So yeah, I also got this for like literally $4, so we love a good deal. Let me move my headphone stand so I can put the books here. The next book I have is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is kind of like a whodunit mystery, except it has like a really interesting premise because the main character, Aiden, has to inhabit 8 bodies in 8 days. So it says, Evelyn Hardcastle will be murdered at 11 p.m. There are 8 days and 8 witnesses for you to inhabit. We will only let you escape once you tell us the name of the killer. Understood? Then let's begin. This has been on my physical TBR for so long. This book is so like satisfying to hold. I love a matte cover, like I said, and it's also like just so rectangular and like also pretty floppy. I don't know. I just really want to hold this book. I want to read it soon. It sounds so interesting. I've never read anything where like they're inhabiting other bodies and they have to figure out like a murder through those means, and it just sounds really entertaining. The next book I have, I know really nothing about, just besides the fact that it's sapphic, and that is Crier's War by Nina Varela. I've heard so many good things about the duology, and I've heard the second book is better, and I do own that, but I am going to give myself a little leeway and only say the first one on my TBR, but best believe I will be reading these back to back. I guess in this world there are 2 people. There's like the human race and then the maid race. The maids, M-A-D-E, they're kind of made to be beautiful, made to be perfect, I guess. I don't know too much about it, to be honest, but basically, yeah. And it says, impossible love between 2 girls, 1 human, 1 maid, a love that can birth a revolution. And on the front it says, 1 mortal, 1 maid, 1 loved, 1 betrayed. All of those elements just make me want to read this really bad. I don't want to go into it knowing too much. I feel like I like to go into books kind of blind, so this is definitely one I want to get into soon. I also just think the cover is just so stunning. It's very intricate, and it's been on my TBR for like literally forever, and I found it recently at a thrift store, so I was like, I need to get it now. Following the lines of fantasy, I have The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This looks huge on camera. It does have like pretty large font, I'd say, though. Like, it doesn't seem like, I feel like it's just for marketing purposes that the book is this big, because it's only like 800 pages. But overall, this just seems like so up my alley. Like, this is a 5-star prediction. This and the prequel book, which I don't own, but I will get it if I love this book. It is like a high fantasy. It has a sapphic romance, and I'm pretty sure like a very diverse and inclusive world. Like, I'm pretty sure I've read that Samantha Shannon doesn't write like racism and homophobia, all that kind of stuff into her books, so that's great, because why would, like, in a fantasy book, like, you can write that stuff out, and a lot of authors do include that, so I love whenever that is like incorporated into a book. I feel like another series that's like that is right here. It's the Furyborn trilogy, also called the Imperium trilogy by Claire Legrand, and I really love that aspect of the story, so I feel like this book is just going to be so good. It has like royalty, political intrigue, a sapphic romance, dragons, and it just sounds really good. I really don't know that much about it. I know this has like a glossary as well at the end, so I'm pretty nervous to get into this. It's very daunting, but it just sounds so good. I love the cover. It's so like, it's just gorgeous. I'm so excited for this book. I really think that I'll get to this really soon. It's been on every TBR every month since I bought it like a couple months ago, and I need to read it like immediately. Then I have One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. I have read the Atlas 6 trilogy by Olivia Blake, and I absolutely loved it. I didn't really write those books because I just like, it's such a time, it's such like a whimsical world that I don't even like know what I read. Like, I could not tell you the plot, but I could tell you how much I love the characters. They were so complex. The writing was impeccable. It was so like well written, and there were so many quotes that I like needed like tattooed on my body. Like, obviously I didn't get them, but like, it's just like there were a lot of beautiful quotes that I really resonated with, and I loved her writing. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the world. So I definitely want to hop into another book by her, and I've heard this writing, and this is impeccable. This is an urban fantasy following two rival families. One is all women, who I'm guessing is them, and then the other one is like all men, and I guess they're like rival families, and then something goes down, something bad happens, and then it just goes into chaos. There's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of choosing sides, and it just sounds really good. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and I'm so excited to get into this. It just sounds so good, and I love a good standalone book, because sometimes like after reading an 8-book series, I'm just like, wow, I want to read every standalone in the world. So I'm super excited to get into this. Then I have another vampire book. This is Cruel Illusions by Maggie Fuston. This is the Fairlieu edition. It's super stunning, has very stunning sprayed edges. It follows this girl named Ava. Her mom was murdered by vampires, and since then she's been wanting to get revenge on them. Upon leaving foster care, she stumbles upon this magic show, and for some reason she goes backstage and tries to catch them in an act of doing like forbidden magic or something like that. And she ends up finding out that they are part of this like ancient secret society, and that they have magic running in their blood, and they're like, hey, you actually have it too. And they're like, if you come on as our apprentice, we'll teach you to hone your magic, and then you can use it to get revenge on the vampires. And it kind of just goes from there. It sounds super interesting, and it's marketed as Caraval meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is so up my alley. It just sounds so good. I'm super excited to get into this and get it off my physical TBR, because I've had it for a while and I just haven't gotten to it, but we will get to it soon. I don't know if you can see how many books I have there. That's genuinely terrifying. Like, I'm scared they're gonna like all topple down on me right now. But then I have Ninth House by Lee Bardugo. This has been making its rounds for years. I feel like this is like one of the books that people talk about when they're like, oh, dark academia, and it just sounds super good. It follows this girl named Alex. I guess she was involved in this unsolved multiple homicide, but she made it out alive. She's the only survivor, and whenever she is in the hospital, someone like approaches her and they're like, hey, we'll send you to Yale on a full ride scholarship if you do this thing for us. And they want her to basically like monitor the activities of Yale secret societies, and I guess those societies are getting up to like really not great things. They're playing with forbidden magic, trying to raise the dead, and just prey on the living, I guess. I don't know. They're doing like a lot of bad stuff, and I guess Alex is supposed to do something about it. I don't know. That's like all it says on the back, but it sounds like it goes from there. It's super interesting. I haven't picked this up because I know it is. I thought it was going to be a duology, but it's going to be a trilogy. So there's Ninth House and Hellbent out right now, and then the third book is probably going to come out either next year or the year after that from what I've researched. But then we have one of the big dark academia books, and that is If We Were Villains by ML Rio. This is like talked about so much. I see so many people absolutely loving this book, and I hear a lot of people say like, if you didn't like The Secret Society, you'll still like this one. And I hated The Secret Society. I did not like the writing. I didn't like everything that it was about, and I felt like it was unnecessary at some points for like some topics to be introduced, and it was not for me. Like, if you love it, that's good for you, because I really wanted to love it. It was not for me, and I DNF'd it like halfway through and immediately unhauled it. But I do love dark academia. Like Babel is one of my favorite books, and I really want to jump back into like more dark academia books. As you can see, it follows like 7 students. They're all theater majors or something. I don't know. They're specializing in Shakespeare, however. And that is a reason that I'm kind of scared to get into this, is because I don't know that much about Shakespeare and his plays, but I feel like I could just look up like spark notes if I get confused. And I've seen a lot of people say like, even if you don't know Shakespeare, like it's kind of described in a way that you don't have to appreciate this book and to understand some of the references. But I do think I want to get into it either way. They're basically specializing in Shakespeare, and something goes down in their 4th year, something bad happens. I'm guessing someone probably dies, and they kind of have to like figure out the mystery. That's kind of all I know about it so far, is like what I've heard. I'm super excited to get into this. I've heard just such great things about it. I literally saw a TikTok earlier that was like the only book ever written, and it was this, and I was like, need to read it this fall. Like I need to, because this has been on my physical TBR for like a year plus. So this is kind of crazy. I'm looking at it, I'm like, I feel like it's doable. Alright, the last books that I'm going to put on my physical TBR is a trilogy, and it is a reread. I read these in 2021, and I just want to reread it again before Halloween. That is the Folk of the Air Trilogy by Holly Black, also known as the Cruel Prince series. I want to reread this because I'm planning to go as Jude for Halloween, and I just kind of want to like reread this world and jump back into it. I really enjoyed the series. It was a 4-star trilogy for me when I read it back in 2021. I'm hoping that it'll be better, because I do think that this fits my tastes like very well. Like I love a good romance, a good enemies to lovers that's like actually an enemies to lovers, but that isn't the main focus of the story. The romance in the series is very much a subplot. It's mainly following just our main character Jude, and like kind of her rise to power, her fighting for like what she wants and for her goals. It's just overall a really good series. I'm super excited to jump back into it and get into the politics, because I love a political fantasy. It's just a really good trilogy. It's really solid. I love Holly Black as an author. Her writing is just so atmospheric, and I feel like it's perfect for a fall reread. That's crazy. Let's see if I can hold this. I'm scared it's gonna like all fall and then damage all of these books, but we'll try. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this is an insane step, but I feel like I can do it. That's all the books that I want to read this autumn, this fall. I feel like my winter TBR is gonna be even better, just because I feel like winter is like my favorite season, and I feel like the most motivated to read when it's cold outside. But I do think it's the most atmospheric time, and I'm super excited to jump into these. Thank you so much if you stayed this long into the video. If you read any of these, please let me know down below, because I'd love to get your opinions on them. No spoilers, please. If you want to follow me on different platforms, everything will be linked in the description, as well as some of my other videos if you'd like to check that out. But if you enjoyed this video, you want to see me read these will probably, majority of them, be in a reading vlog. So you should totally subscribe, like, comment down below, do whatever you want to do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Oh, now it's time to put all these books away. Oh my gosh.